This is a mushrooms trip report by Verdant, posted to aroid.org on January 25, 2008. I was 20 years old at the time, a college student who weighed about 180 pounds. I had been living with a low level of depression for several years. It was not a depression that kept me in bed every day, but it was a weight that sat on my chest and made many days feel heavier than they needed to be. I did not know how deep the feeling went, but I knew it had been there for a long time. The source of the heaviness stretched back to a relationship that had ended 9 months before the night I write about now. My former partner and I had been very close. We loved each other more than perhaps we should have. When her financial aid was cut, she could no longer afford to stay in my town. We talked about the possibility of staying together, but both of us realized that we could not risk our futures for a romance that might collapse under financial pressure. She left, and I fell back into the familiar pattern of low mood and restless thoughts. The months after her departure were dark, but they did not crush me completely. I kept going to classes, kept working part-time, kept trying to stay afloat. During that period, I tried magic mushrooms a few times. Each time the experience was gentle. The climb was smooth, the come down was easy, and there were no nasty after effects. The trips gave me a new way to look at my life, a new sense of understanding that felt like a small flash of insight. After each trip, I would notice a new feeling, a new way of seeing something that had been hidden before. Because of those experiences, I decided that when my friend's birthday came around, I would get some mushrooms for him as a present. He also liked psychedelics, so I thought it would be a good fit. At the same time, I had started seeing a girl who lived in the same housing cooperative where I worked. She was in an open relationship. She described her relationship as a series of close friendships that sometimes included sex, but the people involved remained friends after the encounter. My own view of a relationship was more traditional. I gave her a piece of my heart, hoping that we could be something more. It was not a healthy situation for either of us, but at the time I was happy simply to be close to someone again. The cooperative was a place full of murals, old furniture, and many small rooms that we could use for anything we wanted. It was close to a forest and a community garden, and the people there accepted the occasional use of hippie drugs such as marijuana, salvia, LSD, and mushrooms. The atmosphere was relaxed and supportive. On the night of the birthday, we met in the common kitchen. I prepared the mushrooms, measured the dose, and handed a portion to each of the three of us. My friend, the girl I was seeing, and myself. We also grabbed a few snacks from a nearby store before the effects began. The store was a small corner shop, the kind that sells chips, soda, and instant noodles. We bought a bag of chips, a couple of soda cans, and a package of instant ramen. We walked back to the cooperative, feeling the cool night air on our faces, hearing the distant hum of traffic, and hearing the occasional rustle of leaves in the nearby trees. When we entered the house, the mushrooms started to work. I felt a sudden lift in my mood, a feeling of elation that seemed artificial but also normal. My heart beat a little faster, my breath felt lighter, and my thoughts began to drift toward happy memories. My friend and the girl also started to laugh, and soon we were all laughing together for what felt like 15 minutes, though the clock would later tell us it was about an hour. The room seemed to glow with a soft, warm light, and the walls appeared to breathe with us. We moved to the larger room that had many couches, a large painted mural of a forest, and a shelf full of curiosities. The visuals began to intensify. Colors on the walls seemed to pulse. The mural's trees swayed as if a wind were blowing through them, and the patterns on the carpet looked like moving water. We sat there, watching the walls, laughing and commenting on the shapes that appeared. The mushroom gift felt like a perfect birthday present. We were still rising, still feeling the lift in our spirits. After a while, I wanted to talk about the things I was seeing, the ideas that were forming in my mind. I am a philosophy major, and I like to put thoughts into words. I turned to my friend and the girl and asked them what they were feeling, what images were coming to them. They seemed content to stay on the surface, to enjoy the colors and the laughter. They did not want to go deeper at that moment. I felt a small sting of hurt. I wanted to share a deeper connection, and they wanted to stay in the light, to enjoy the visual feast without digging into meaning. The girl asked for a quiet moment to look at the light on the wall. I obliged and stepped away to another part of the house. I think that was the moment when the peak of the trip hit me. My mind felt far from normal. I walked down a hallway and stopped at a door that I had not paid much attention to before. The door was covered in poems, paintings, and scribbles. It was made of metal, and the surface was cool to the touch. I stood there, reading the words, feeling each line as if it were a small wave. As I read, a feeling of loneliness washed over me. It was a deep, quiet loneliness, not a panic, but a sense that I was alone in a room full of people. I leaned my face and my hands against the metal. The cold was comforting. The contact with something solid felt like a small anchor. I felt my body merge with the house, felt the people around me, yet I could not connect to them. I realized that I needed to get outside to see something beyond the walls. I thought about going to the roof. The roof of our cooperative was a large, flat area that we often used for gatherings. It was safe, and I had been up there many times. I felt that I could find something meaningful there. I turned back to my friends and asked them to come with me to the roof. Their answer was simple. They could not handle it right then. Their words hurt, but I did not argue. I understood that they were still in a different place in the trip. I began the climb to the roof. The building had 3 floors before the attic. I started at the bottom, stepping onto the first stair, then the second, then the third. The trip made time feel stretched. Each step seemed to take an eternity, even though only a few minutes passed in the real world. My thoughts wandered. I thought about why I felt alone, why my friends would not join me, why I could not simply let the feeling pass. I wondered if there was something deeper that I was missing, or if I was just being foolish. When I reached the attic, the space was dark. A sense of foreboding settled over me. I imagined my thoughts as I climbed up a wall of fear. I could have turned back and stayed in my ignorance, but the pain inside me urged me forward. I opened the trap door, stepped onto the roof, and was met with a view that took my breath away. It was raining that night. The sky was filled with light purple clouds that moved slowly across the darkness. The city lights below glowed like distant fireflies. The rain fell in a thin mist, making the air cool and fresh. The wind brushed my face, and the sound of distant traffic was muffled by the rain. I stood there, looking out at the sky, and a wave of understanding hit me. I realized that we are all alone in the universe, that the pain I felt inside was not unique to me, that every person carries a similar weight. The only thing that makes life worth living is the connection we manage to break through the veil of loneliness. Love, in its purest form, was the only thing that had ever given me true happiness. I had felt love, lost it, and felt the hollow emptiness that follows. In that moment I saw my friends in the room below, each of them alone in their own way, even though they were together. I also saw that the ideas I held about gender were just labels. Whether I loved a man or a woman, the verb remained the same: love. The labels did not matter. The feeling was the same. As I stared at the clouds, a line from a movie I'd watched many times rang in my mind. This is your life, and it is ending 1 minute at a time. The words cut through the desire I felt to simply lie down and let the darkness take me. They also reminded me that hope for happiness might return, or it might not. I could not know. I could only keep moving forward, because that is what life asks of us. I stayed on the roof for a while, breathing in the rain, watching the clouds drift. Eventually I felt a need to share what I had seen with my friends. I walked back down, feeling different. My face seemed sharper, my voice softer, as if a part of me had become more feminine. Some of my sober friends later told me that I looked different after that night. My fellow trippers noticed a change in my energy as well, though they could not put it into words. When I entered the room again, the atmosphere was still lively. The murals glowed, the music played, and a drum circle was forming in another corner. My friends were laughing, drinking, and playing drums. I felt like a shadow passing through them. My attempts to persuade them to come up to the roof failed. This time I did not feel the same sting of rejection. It was as if a numbness had settled in my chest, dulling the pain. Instead, I walked toward the drum circle. The rhythm was steady, the drums resonated through the floorboards, and the participants moved in a simple, unhurried way. I watched them, feeling separate from the group but also part of the whole. One of my dear friends looked at me, his eyes searching. He stepped forward, put his arms around me, and held me tightly. In that embrace, I sensed that he was also carrying his own burden. He later told me that he was ending a relationship of his own that night. The rest of the night was a blur of small moments. I wandered through the house, looking for something to hold on to, something to love. I found nothing that felt solid. My former partner, the girl in the open relationship, and my friend each experienced the mushrooms in their own way, and each of them seemed to have a different take on the night. I felt that we all regretted some part of it, but we also learned something about ourselves. My perception of love and sex changed dramatically after that night. I realized that love is not a possession, that it is a feeling that can exist without ownership. I also realized that my own identity had shifted. Since that night, some of my friends have commented that I seem different, that I am more reflective, that I smile less often but think more. When they ask me if I had a good time, I answer that it was good but not happy. I cannot say that I was joyful, because the joy was mixed with a deep awareness of loneliness and the weight of my own thoughts. If only they could see the whole picture, perhaps they would understand. In the weeks that followed, I tried to integrate the insight I had gained. I went back to my classes, I kept working at the cooperative, and I tried to keep in touch with the people I cared about. The depression did not disappear, but it felt less like a wall and more like a cloud that could move. The memory of the roof, the rain, the purple clouds, and the line from the movie stayed with me.